So you want to buy an affordable sports car in 2025 but don't want to lose a fortune to depreciation?
No worries, I'll guide you through the cars you should steer clear of if you care about resale values and those that should definitely be on your shortlist.
Strong values are often associated with expensive Porsches and Ferraris, but you don't need to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars to get yourself into a low depreciating sports car.
But what's affordable? In this video I'll interpret it as cars that are cheaper than the ones that usually feature on this channel. The border will be at approximately $80,000. But don't worry, I'll also include cars that are way cheaper.
This means that some brand new cars will be included that didn't feature before on the channel, but also some 15-year-old exotics. The video is packed with data, so let's get started.
Before we dive into the individual models, it's important to set the context. So let's first look at the general sports and supercar market. We can see that the average yearly price change has been recovering from its low of minus 12% per year. Depreciation rates decreased to more normal levels. In October 25, the average year-over-year decrease was minus 0.7%, and most cars sit between minus 4.5 and plus 1.9%. This might seem low, but remember that it includes everything from 986 Boxsters to 458 Speciales and Nissan Zs.
Let's see now how the affordable cars are doing.
Over here we have the big overview with the year-over-year price changes for all the different models. The average decrease was 1.6%, but there are major swings up and down. Some models increased by 10%, while others are down by 15%.
Now if you're a value-conscious buyer, you probably want to avoid the cars at the top of the chart. So let's find out which affordable cars have the highest depreciation rates.
I made the overview a bit smaller and only included the top 25% worst depreciating models, meaning the ones that lost more than 5%. Starting at the top, we can see that the Nissan Z Nismo lost 14.6% during last year, making it the quickest depreciating model in this video. It did worse than the normal version, which lost only 9.5%.
Let's inspect the price trends a bit closer.
Prices for the Nismo started around MSRP and fell immediately after its introduction. The current median price is $51.3 thousand, and this is 14.6% lower than a year ago. Naturally, supply ramped up in the meantime, helping to push prices down. The trend for the Z shows that prices were far above MSRP after its introduction and quickly corrected. The current depreciation rate of 9.5% is therefore relatively low compared to the car's price history. Nevertheless, compared to all the other models we're looking at, it is on the high side.
Back to the overview.
The F-Type P380 and 4 cylinders sit at the second and third spot respectively. That's remarkable given their age. Looking at the trends, we can see that prices have been falling quickly and are, compared to last year, 12.5% lower in the 4-cylinder market and 14.9% in the P380 market. The trend in the 4-cylinder market seems to be flattening, while this is not evident in the P380 market.
And with that we go back to the overview.
Next on the list is the Aston Martin DB9 from before the facelift. You can see that this model has an asterisk behind the name, and that's because I don't have the full yearly pricing data yet. Based on the development in 2025, the rate seems to be an overestimation. I still included it because I know that some of you are waiting for the Aston Martin numbers. Continuing with the list, we see more F-types, the pre-facelift V6 and facelifted V8R. The V6 has been falling for a long time and continues to do so. Prices are 10.4% lower than 1 year ago. More granular data reveals a potential flattening in the trend, but we need to wait and see if it materializes. Prices in the facelifted V8R market are also down. They lost 9.7% during last year. You can pick them up at $60,000, and this will give you a fairly new car with heaps of performance.
F-types often make it to the quickest depreciating cars on the channel, so we look at the price trends on a fairly regular basis.
It's then also no surprise that the facelifted P380, pre-facelift V8R and facelifted 4 cylinders made it to the list. Let's shift our focus to other models. On place 9 we namely find the GR86 with a rate of minus 8.6%. We can see that prices have been falling fairly linear since January 2024. There's then also little difference between model year 22 and model year 25 cars. They still depreciate at approximately the same rate. Going back to the overview, we can see that the rates are starting to decrease quickly to the border of 5%. The F82, 83 M4 competition and base models, for example, sit at 7.3 and 6.7% respectively. We can see that prices for the base model were relatively stable during the last 6 months, as they've been hovering just under $40,000. The trend is slowly flattening. Competitions are falling at approximately the same rate as they did in 2024. Going back to the overview and moving down towards the 5% border, we find the BMW i8. In the recent mid-engine market update, we already had a look at the i8, so we'll skip this one. Going down further, we can see that basically all these models depreciate at approximately 5%. The difference is negligible. First up is the base version of the AMG GT. We can see a very small flattening in the trend compared to 2024, and the price level that sits between $70,000 and roughly $75,000. It's not surprising that this model is still depreciating at 5.7%, but the trend might be close to an inflection point. If we go back to the overview, we find the Audi R8, the facelifted V8 version to be precise. If we look at the price trend for the automatic models, we can see a strong correction from pandemic highs. They lost 5.5% during last year, and prices sit now at approximately our $80,000 threshold level. There's no clear inflection point visible in the trend.
Let's go back to the overview one more time and wrap up the quickest depreciating affordable cars.
The other models on the list are the 718 Cayman Base, Giulia QV, C8 Stingray and 718 Boxster Base. With exception of the Giulia, the models are featured frequently on the channel, so let's only have a look at the trend for the Giulia. We can see a small flattening in the trend, resulting in a decrease of 5.4% during last year. Especially for the Giulia, it's important to note that this is an average rate. New cars with a low mileage lost considerably more, while mid to high mileage cars lost less.
Now, provided you're a value-conscious buyer, the models that we just looked at are best to be avoided from a depreciation perspective. But as always, nuance is important. There's still a massive difference between buying an AMG GT, for which the price trend is flattening, or an F-Type or Nismo, for which prices are declining at a high linear rate.
Yet, if depreciation is important to you, you should probably buy a car from the next list. The list that shows the top 25% affordable cars with the lowest depreciation rates during last year.
These are the models that increased by more than 1.4%.
Some are even up by 8 to 10%, but most models fall between the +2 and +5%. The oldest Nissan GT-R is included with a rate of 10.8%. But similar to the Aston Martin DB9 we talked about before, the last 3 months are estimated. I received many requests for the GT-R market, so consider this to be a teaser before they're featured in their own market update. Moving up, we find of course a Porsche, the 981 Boxster S. Looking at the price trend, we can see a reversal during 2025. There's some noise in the data, but the price increase of 8.6% is statistically confirmed. This means that it's unlikely to be the result of chance. The 981 market in general is strong for both Boxsters and Caymans, and this 981 isn't the only one in the list. Number 3 is again a Porsche, but increased significantly less than number 1 and 2. It's the 997.2 base model. Looking at the price trend, we can see that prices dipped a bit in 2024, but recovered in 2025. This recovery led to a year-over-year price increase of 7.1%. Note though that this change isn't statistically confirmed and could be the result of chance.
The general Porsche sports car market is quite strong, and there are then also quite a few Porsches in the list. They do, however, receive a lot of attention on the channel, so we're not going to iterate through all of the Porsche price trends. Please check out the channel's Porsche playlist for dedicated Porsche videos. In this video, we'll focus more on other non-Porsche models.
Next up on the list is the Mustang Bullitt. Similar to the 997 that we saw before, prices recovered drastically in 2025, leading to a 6.4% increase. You can see that the price level isn't that far off from the peak, that is, if you ignore inflation. Going back to the overview and moving up, we find the F82, 83 M4 CS. Compared to the base and competitions that we saw earlier, the CS is doing much better. We can see that prices flattened during 2024 and started to increase during 2025. This resulted in a year-over-year increase of 6.2%. At this rate, it won't take long before they no longer make it to our affordable sports car list. Going up, we find the 986 Boxster S and the Alfa Romeo 4C. Zooming into the 4C market, we can see that prices have been creeping up slowly, but at a fairly stable rate. Last year they increased by 5.1%. A great result. We need to keep an eye on these cars. Working our way up, we find the S2000 AP1, a car for which many of you requested the price trends. Over here we have the trends for the AP1 and the AP2. I figured I include the AP2 as well, since it sits a bit higher on the list. You can see that a lot of the data is missing before May 2024, but the most recent period is complete. S2000 prices have been trending up for a while, and the AP1 is up by 5.1% and the AP2 by 3%. Decent results. The change in the AP2 market though isn't statistically confirmed, so it could be the result of chance. Going back to the overview, we find multiple Porsches. The Cayman 986 Base, 997.2S, Boxster 981 Spider, 981 GTS and 997.1S. Finally, we then arrive at the C7 Corvette CO6. We talked about this model in the dedicated Corvette market update, so check out this video if you want to know more. Moving up again, we find the 997.1 Base and 991.1 Base, followed by the S2000 AP2 that we talked about earlier.
The next car on the list is a surprising one.
It's the 3-liter Toyota Supra. Looking at the price trend for the 3-liter, we can see that prices have been climbing in 2025, resulting in a 2.9% increase compared to last year. Again, this is an average. The 2024 car still depreciated a bit, but prices for cars that are from 2023 or older were stable or increased. The 2-liter variant didn't make it to the top 25% of cars for which prices increased the most, but a decrease of minus 0.1% is still an exceptional result. Going back to the overview once again, we find the 981 Cayman GTS, 991.1S and M2 Competition to complete the list.
All of the sports cars we just talked about are relative value conscious choices if you're searching for a sports car under $80,000. The ones from the first list are in general best to be avoided.
But there are of course many models that are depreciating close to the average.
Let's quickly walk through that list as well, because we'll find cars for different budgets and tastes.
Over here we have the cars that lost less than 5% but didn't gain more than 1.4%. We can see for example that the 4.7 liter Vantage, Evora S, NA Miata, LC500, R8 V8 from before the facelift and 4.3 liter Vantages fall still on the positive side of the 0 point. Moving up we find a large group of cars that sits between 0 and the minus 2% rate. It contains models like the M2 Base, Evora 400, some Porsches and the AMG GTS. From this point onwards, rate quickly increased to the set 5% border. In this area we find a few Porsches but also a bunch of F-types, the second generation i8, the NC and ND Miata and the Focus RS.
Alright, we looked at a lot of data, so let's start to wrap things up. As you saw, the difference between the best and worst performing affordable sports car is large, at approximately 25 percentage points. If that's important to you, take note. Here are the key points.
The F-Type, with a few exceptions, is still best to be avoided despite its relatively old age. The same applies to the Nissan Z and non-CS M4s. Many Porsches, but not all, on the other hand are doing well and are smart purchases from a value perspective. But if you don't fancy a Porsche, the Mustang Bullet, M4 CS, Alfa Romeo 4C and S2000 are also smart purchases.
None of these cars are investment cars per se. But that's also not the point. As a value-conscious buyer, you probably buy the car to enjoy, not as an investment. Therefore, the point is, in my mind, to buy something that you can enjoy without losing a ton of money. I hope that this video helps you to find a suitable car for that purpose.
Now keep in mind that these depreciation rates are descriptive. They can predict the short-term future prices, but not the long-term price trends. Some cars like the Nissan Z are still relatively new and will follow a traditional depreciation pattern, whereas prices for something like a Boxster 986 will move with supply and demand and the factors driving those elements.
And with that we arrived at the end of the video. Is a car missing from the list? Please let me know down below in the comment section what car you would like to see included. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you again in 2 weeks for a fresh market update.